One event in history that had a great effect on my family is the Second World War. My great-grandpa, Vernus, and my great-grandma, Lillian, were living in Texas at the time. They're pictured in the middle. And my uncle Vernus felt a lot of pressure from society to be drafted into the army. He felt that at the time everyone was very proud and there was a lot of stigma around being a draft dodger. And at the time he had a wife and 2 kids, and so he was later to be enlisted. But he felt like people were looking at him and wondering, why isn't this healthy young man being enlisted in the army to serve his country? And he really did want to serve his country, but it just wasn't his time yet. But eventually he did join the U.S. Army Air Corps, and he served with them for 2 years. And during this period of time, his wife, Lillian, had a really, really difficult time with her mental health, trying to take care of 2 children without her husband there. And while he was in the war, and she was worried about his well-being. And eventually she had to go to a psychiatric ward. And during this time, my grandpa Keith really struggled because he had to live with a lot of different families, and this had a great effect on his mental health. And so obviously this difficulty rippled down through generations, and I think that it influenced my grandpa for his whole life, which therefore influenced my mom and then me, because this was a really challenging time for everyone, and so it kind of changed the way that families interacted with each other, and the way that relationships worked within our families. And the second thing that influenced my family, which is more recent, is Brexit. So when the United Kingdom voted to leave the European Union. Because my family has lived in England since I was 5, this affected us a lot. Because my dad works for a business that's very involved with different countries in Europe, and with Brexit, everything was completely up in the air, very uncertain how it would affect international relationships with business. And so we were about to buy a house, and we decided not to, because my dad thought that we might have to move to a different country in Europe in order for him to continue his work. And so that meant that we moved to a new house in the same area, but that definitely changed things for my family a lot and caused a lot of stress when things were very uncertain. And in the end, we ended up being able to stay in England because it didn't affect relationships as much as we thought it would.